But of course, we begin with our big story here. 2 more hostages released by Hamas. Israel's defense minister now saying that the country's military is gearing up for a multilateral operation in the air, ground, and sea. This as more aid is traveling into Gaza, but humanitarian workers warn it's just a fraction of what is needed there. So joining me now is Democratic Congressman from Illinois, Casten. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And of course, we just saw these images of American hostages that were released. They're from Evanston, Illinois, your home state. We're also now hearing of 2 other hostages released. They are now back in their home country of Israel. So my question to you is, have you heard from any of your colleagues any update from these American hostages?
So I've been in touch with Congresswoman Schakowsky up in Evanston, who the first 2 were from her district, and obviously everybody's very grateful to see them being released. You know, I think all of us are trying to, are just heartbroken with the fact that there are so many civilians that are in harm's way, not just Americans, not just hostages, but the Palestinians, the Gazans who are not a part of Hamas but are being caught up in this collateral damage, and of course the horrific civilian loss in Israel. And the sooner we can come to some kind of peace while maintaining Israel's absolute right to defend themselves, the better off.
Certainly. We saw the bipartisan letter that you co-wrote to the Biden administration asking how it plans to prevent future crypto finance terror after a Wall Street Journal reporting that Hamas raised millions of dollars via crypto to fund their attack on Israel. So what was the response from the White House, if any?
So we've had some conversations with Treasury Department staff and are gearing up for briefings that will probably have to be in a classified setting. But what we're fairly certain of at this point is that the amounts of money that Iran transferred to Hamas, which made some of these attacks possible, are roughly equivalent to the additional amounts of money that Hamas has been able to get through cryptographic networks, where they're able to raise money through channels that get around traditional anti-money laundering rules. And really, the crypto industry has got to address this issue, because they've designed protocols that make it very easy to launder money. And so we've been encouraged. We need to get more from the White House. We've been encouraged by some of the actions that the White House has taken to clamp down on this. But it's going to take the United States. It's going to take a lot of our trade partners to clamp down on these networks. And ultimately, I think it's going to take much more regulatory enforcement around the cryptographic industry.
There was a press conference in Tel Aviv yesterday, and Senator Lindsey Graham said that Congress will deliver what Israel needs to win. So is that possible, given the current state of Congress? And will such an aid package pass if it includes pushback from the Republicans on that aid to Ukraine?
Well, you know, I'm standing here right now outside of the doors of the House that are closed and have been closed for 20 days, barring an occasional vote for Speaker. None of us are very proud of that. I think it's seeing what has happened as the Republican Party has been attacking itself within the House side has been disappointing, to say the least, especially when we need to provide aid to Israel. We need to provide aid to Ukraine. We need to provide humanitarian assistance to make sure that we look out for the communities in Gaza and the West Bank. The president has put that package together. We need to get it done. I would hope that we can pass that, because we have passed aid packages like that on a robust bipartisan basis, pretty consistently getting 315 votes in the House. But first we have to get the House open, and then we need to make sure that the House is open in a way where whoever ends up being the Speaker of the House is willing to work on a bipartisan basis, because it's the only way that aid gets provided.
Well, and Congressman, as you were talking, we showed the pictures of the 9 Republicans that are now running for House Speaker here. There's 9 of them. So my question is, would Democrats consider supporting any Republican or a moderate Republican to get the House in order and get this aid package passed?
So we as Democrats are under no illusions that we don't get to pick who the Speaker is. We want to have the House open. I think there are a suite of Republicans who would get support. The challenge that they have is getting support within their own caucus. You know, for those of us who were here, as I was on January 6th, we're not really very excited about voting for a Speaker who voted to overturn the election. When we have to provide aid to Ukraine, we're not very excited about voting for members of Congress who just voted to block aid to Ukraine, or who voted to cut aid to Israel by 30% in the last CR. Now, there still are a few dozen Republican members who would fit that, would stay out of those troublesome Venn diagrams and would know that we could not only get government open, but would defend democracy and would make sure that our government stays open and we get aid to our allies. Whether such a Republican could win the support within their own caucus is difficult to tell at this point. And it's, you know, it's sad to see the party of Lincoln at war with itself, but somehow they've got to get through this if we're going to move forward.
All right, Representative Sean Casten, thank you so much for your time. And I want to bring our big story here to our panel now. So joining us today is Sirius XM radio host and ABC News contributor Mike Muse, Democratic strategist and president of Next Gen America, Christina Sinsoon Ramirez, ABC News contributor, former assistant U.S. attorney, former chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, John Katko, and ABC News national security and defense analyst, former deputy assistant secretary of defense for the Middle East, Mick Mulroy. Thank you all so much for being here with us. So John, as we start here with you, do you think that it's possible for Democrats to coalesce behind a moderate Republican to get the House in order? Because every Democrat I've asked so far, they either don't answer the question or they don't say yes.
Well, Kana, I think that it's getting to the point where they're going to have to start considering that, because it looks like this round, the front runner seems to be Tom Emmer, and he might be able to get to the majority of votes to get it to a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. But it's not clear at all whether he's got the votes to withstand an attack from the far right of his party. And if we go through this whole kabuki dance again, and there is still no speaker elected, I think then moderates might start thinking maybe we should start working with the Democratic Party. We've tried everything we can, and we've got a lot going on here. So I do think it's a possibility. I think they got to run its course with this round. If this round fails, I think anything's on the table, including maybe the unthinkable, getting a speaker from outside the caucus entirely, outside of Congress entirely. So let's see how it all shakes out. But the next 24 hours is going to be telling, that's for sure.
All right, wouldn't that be something? I know you'll stay on top of that, John. Mick, to you. Look, earlier today, we heard from a State Department spokesperson, Matthew Miller. And he went on to say that he isn't aware of anything that Hamas was getting in exchange for the hostages that were released so far. Do you think that that's the case here? Is it something that he just doesn't want to divulge?
So, Kay, it might be. I don't know, but Hamas is not doing this out of charity or humanity. Mm-hmm. It is likely transactional. So there is something that they want. I doubt that's going to be publicly disclosed because it would essentially be negotiating with terrorists. But it's also something that has been done. We've seen it recently with the $6 billion, which is now frozen. But that for U.S. Essentially hostages in Iran. So it is possible. I don't think they'll disclose it.
They're not going to disclose what they traded for. And Christina, to you, tell me about the public sentiment you're seeing here as we are seeing protests. I mean, we have Matt Gutman reporting from protests in Tel Aviv. This is all happening as people are calling for the release of all the hostages. But we know that Israel is preparing for this ground invasion.
Yeah, we are seeing unprecedented protests across the world, including here in the United States. Jews for peace protesting in Congress, saying, "Please do not end. We must have a ceasefire now. Please do not take these actions in our names." We had 5,000 people killed. Estimates showing 40% of them children. And so the newest polls out show that 66% of American voters want a ceasefire and support a ceasefire in Israel. And so I think the concern was always that, you have a population of 2.2 million people, the most densely populated place in the world, that civilians would ultimately pay the price. And that's what we're seeing happen right now in sentiment, very broadly saying across the globe, we need a ceasefire now.
Yeah, and Mike, to you on the same public sentiment factor here, it was one thing, I think, when people thought there was potentially and sadly no hope for these hostages, but we have seen otherwise, right? We have now seen 4 released, and we've also seen Hamas say, we will only release 4 nationals, but just today, 2 Israelis are back home.
Absolutely. And so it gives a cautionary tale, though, Kana, of not wanting to get too excited that Hamas is willing to release more hostages. The challenge right now is we don't know the motive of the why that Hamas is releasing the hostages. Is it they're releasing as a stall tactic to prepare more for a ground offensive to protect themselves from Israel? Are they giving into pressure of humanitarian aid that is so direly needed? Are they feeling the pressure from the Palestinian people in Gaza in terms of wanting to stop so that aid can come forward? And so the fact that we can't trust Hamas is making this so challenging and so difficult on how to move forward.
Right. Some likened it even to psychological warfare as well. Mike, Christina, John, and Mick, thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.